Welcome, everyone, to Expanding Your Consciousness. And today is March 14th, 2023. And our topic is, what is life all about? And so I have with me my two nieces. I have Kelly, and many of you have seen or heard from Kelly in past videos, but we also have her sister, Sarah. And I thought this is an excellent night for Sarah to join us because of some of the things we will be talking about. And so what I'd like to do is just open it up to Kelly and Sarah. And then what I will do is read something that I wrote in regards to what is life all about. So Kelly, did you want to share first?
Okay. So I think life is about learning and it's about going on. Life is an adventure. It's a trip. It's all an adventure. It's what you learn, the lessons you learn on the adventure that help you. So that's what life is about, really.
And when you say learning, are you thinking like at a soul level, or do you
Yeah,
think learning overall? Like it could be any type of learning.
overall. Overall.
Okay. Can you give some examples of, how you feel, what you've learned and what's really helped you in life?
Okay. So like learning about love and
Are
how
you
to
talking about
have that.
relationships, like love in
Yeah,
regards to
relationships,
relationships?
yeah.
Okay.
I guess, growing through knowledge of different topics and learning about other people and learning about animals and music and yeah. and lots of knowledge. I think knowledge is very important.
Okay.
And God as well, like spirituality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Sarah, did you want to contribute, or would you like me to read first, and then you may want to comment after that? Can we see you, Sarah?
Little all of a sudden.
There you go.
So anything about life really is
Yes. Do you want me to read mine first, and then maybe you
sure.
may have some comments on it? Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. I won't screen share this. I'll just read it out. Okay.
Okay.
First of all, I just Googled to see what people would say. And I kind of liked what this person said because they kept it pretty general. They said, I typed in, what is the meaning of life? And someone said, no one can tell the actual definition of the meaning of life. For some, it is all about happiness, building a family, and leading life as it is. For others, it is about accumulating wealth, and still for some, it is all about love. So I thought I'd, just write a few things as I reflected about this question, what is life all about? And this is what I wrote. Now that I am 65, I am reflecting more on my life and what I feel is important in life overall. I believe that we are all spiritual people and that this is something that has been neglected in our materialistic world. I think that our spirits need to be fed just as we feed our physical bodies. So, how do we feed our spirits? Well, some of us feed our spirits by attending church or other places of worship regularly in a group. Some of us feed our spirits through meditation, prayer, helping others, listening to spiritual music, reading inspiring books and articles, and seeing or creating inspirational artwork. Feeding our spirit is vital to having a joyful life. Here's a quote from Archbishop Fulton Sheen. Quote, spiritual joy is a serenity of temper in the midst of the changes of life, such as a mountain has when a storm breaks over it. To a man who has never rooted the soul in the divine, every trouble exaggerates itself. He cannot put his full powers to any one thing because he is troubled about many things. Unquote. So I believe it is important to think about our spiritual needs, as our spirit is an important part of our life. I also think an important aspect of life is learning about our family roots and passing on healthy family traditions and an appreciation of our culture. When we do this, we enhance our lives and the lives of our immediate family members and relatives. And I should add to that, I also think we enhance society overall. This helps us to form healthy bonds and it enhances our life. It is unfortunate that the traditional family has been under attack over the past 50 years. This has caused great havoc in relationships between men and women. Think about it. Throughout the history of humanity, men and women have worked as a team to fulfill their vital roles to unite and raise children. These children would grow up to help build our societies. I think traditions of creating your own family through marriage and having children is important. It is not old fashioned, it is the basis of a healthy and stable society. Raising children makes us more responsible and helps us to learn to sacrifice our immediate needs to meet the needs of others. Parenting is a selfless act and one that should not be passed on to others, such as daycare workers who may not share the same values. Good parenting is taking the time and effort to instill in children what one feels is important for them to understand and value in order to be successful and joyful people in the world, not so much in the material sense, but in the spiritual one. I believe that this is what life is truly about.
I agree with it. I do. Well, especially if you're like
You have a little,
family.
right? You
Yeah, I
do.
have.
Yes.
Yeah, so I brought life into this world, a
Yes.
little life, and
Yes.
now he's got to expand his life, and
That's,
he's got to learn, and learn and learn.
yeah.
I'm still learning, like as a parent, and it's interesting that you brought up about childcare, daycare,
Yes.
because I used to be in that field, and it's funny because, well, they teach you one thing, but when you're at home, you need to teach your child like another way.
That's right.
Yeah,
What you feel is important for him to know from your perspective, right? From your,
yeah. Like there's certain things that I want to teach him compared to what teachers might teach him.
that's right. Yeah.
So, yeah, he's gonna. Life is interesting.
Yes. There's a lot of challenges for parents nowadays, right?
Hmm.
And so you are seeing a growing number of women making the decision now to stay at home and raise their own children because they don't agree with what's being
Hmm.
programmed into the minds of young children nowadays. Yes.
Oh, I don't like it.
Hmm.
I don't mind like if he went to daycare because I don't, not that I know of, but when I was in the field, we didn't teach what the schools are teaching.
That's
So
right.
I don't know if they're doing that to toddlers,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
I think it's good that he builds social skills
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So that's a good part of life as well.
Yes.
So yeah,
And you've been doing that, right? You've been involved with mothers, coming together and
yeah, yeah. And
forming their own little group, right? So
lived out here in Simcoe for it's going to be 3 years in April, and I'm surprised how many friends I've made. And Charlie's got so many friends for his age.
yes,
So yeah,
yes, that's good. And
uh,
when you reflect on this, because Charlie is how old now?
he's just over a year,
Okay, so when
almost a
you
year and a
think of
half.
your life before Charlie and now
Hmm.
Charlie is here, how has that changed you and your view of things besides what you said in regards to the daycare people or staff? and what you teach them.
I had more freedom. Now I don't.
Ah, yes, right.
Yeah.
That's, sacrificing for someone else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
his needs come. Yeah,
his needs come before anybody else,
yeah.
which I think is the right way if you want to be a parent and bring a little one like into this world, then yeah.
And
Unless you
what about your feelings overall? Like, do you feel happier? Do you feel more satisfied with life that because you've brought a young person into the world?
I'm more happy now because I've been wanting to have kids for so long. Even I didn't want to have kids as a teenager, but I knew then. I was like, my 20s, that didn't happen.
Yes, yes.
So 33 years old. Now I'm 35. So
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, I waited and it happened. Do I want any more? No. So once enough.
Yeah,
Well, it's a lot of work.
it is.
It's
And
a
you
lot of
think
work.
how women did in the past, right? When
Yes.
they would have, 5 or more children.
Hmm.
So that's
My life is a lot different compared to what it was because I don't have full freedom anymore. But I like to, well, since he's the only child, and I think he will be,
mhm,
like to give him as much freedom as he needs
yes.
with discipline.
Freedom's kind of an odd word because a lot of people pick up we
Maybe be
can take
free.
freedom, yeah, we can pick up bad habits when we have
Hmm.
too much freedom. Like, there is something for discipline, having some discipline in your life, and I would
Yes.
think because you're a mother now, you have to have a certain amount of discipline because, you're you have Charlie in your life, right? So
Yes. Oh, I'm starting already with the discipline
but
already.
your own self-discipline, right?
Yeah.
Not just his, but
To
your
get up, to
yeah.
get
Oh, to
up
get up.
early.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I used to get up whenever I want. Now it's as soon as I hear him, it's like, okay, all right, give me a couple minutes, kid, and I could hear him. I'm like, "Oh, okay, okay, okay."
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a better life now. But again, like I don't have like not as free as I used to be, but I like it though.
I also think, and this is another thing, when you have a family, because you have your partner plus Charlie, right?
Hmm.
That you have to be more disciplined in your finances, right? What you spend
Hmm.
your money on, right? Whereas I think when we're single, and we're working and that sort of thing, sometimes we're not, we can be careless with how we
Hmm.
spend our money, right? And our time.
I'm lucky because where we live, it's cheap rent. So where was I going with this?
But do you have to be more careful because,
Yeah,
with your finances than
I,
perhaps
yeah,
before you
yeah,
had Charlie? So,
yeah.
because before you had him, you were working, right? Like you said,
I was working. Yeah,
and other jobs. So,
yeah. I was in the retirement long-term care.
yes.
Yeah. So, but I think they wanted me to come back, but I said no. I think it's better that this is where I was going with mothers should stay home.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
nowadays, everything's so expensive. The
Yes.
mother goes to work too,
Yes, I know.
and they can't afford daycare either.
Yes, I know. Well, that's another thing, right? If you can't afford daycare, you might as well stay home, really,
Yeah.
right? Because either, if you go out and work, what are you working for? For someone to care for your child, when you might as well stay home and care for your child, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And maybe find something to do from home, even if it's part-time. So,
Yeah.
but yes, I think, that's always been a, struggle for not just women, but, men trying to, have a decent wage so that, their wife can stay home and care for a child.
Yep. Makes sense.
Mhm. So I think,
And
it's always been, I remember Dr. E. Michael Jones saying, if people waited until they could afford children, they would never have children, right? But this struggle of, having a family has always been the case. But people look at the rewards of having children, and the rewards are greater than some of the setbacks that you may, face, right, as you're raising.
funny because there's a few people that I know and they say, well, I want to have kids, but we can't afford it. I'm thinking people who have really good jobs, they still can't afford having kids,
Yes,
but
but
yet they still manage.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Oh, you mean they still
Well,
end up
one
having.
thing that's interesting.
Yes, Kelly?
Well, one thing that's interesting. I think it's better to have them. Hi.
Yeah, we're listening.
So I think it's actually better to have kids early. You know what I mean?
Well, why are you thinking from a health point of view, or?
I think also from an emotional point of view too. And I mean, I understand like, not everybody has that luxury. I'm not saying that, okay? But I think overall like it seems like these days people are having kids when they're, uh when they should be grandparents. You know what I mean? Yeah. And
Well,
and
there are some that get older, but you're right, they often will wait until their 30s, sometimes even their early 40s and have children. Yeah, so
yeah, yeah. And you don't have the same, like, especially when you're in your 40s and later, you don't have the same stamina,
mm.
like stamina of like patience and whatever as you did when you were younger.
Do you think,
Like,
it's also, though, the economic situation that because people are forced to get university degrees or,
yeah,
you know,
definitely.
this sort of thing, and then they have to pay off debts and that they
Yeah.
postpone having children?
Well, I think that if it was done the way that it should be, right? You maybe meet somebody when you're a teenager or whatever, 18, 19, whatever. And you end up, with that person, you have a kid or whatever, and you should be able to support that kid and your family without a university degree or
Yes.
without, yeah. I mean, if you want to work, you should work,
Yes.
right?
I think a lot of people are changing their whole views about university too, because, they've seen siblings or, other relatives come up with degrees and then they end up, working at a Starbucks, to try and pay off their loan.
Or they
So
or they just,
so some of them are going to more practical things and going into
yeah,
trades and that.
or they end up with master's degrees and living in mommy and daddy's basement forever
Yes. Yes.
with nothing to show for it.
Hmm.
6 years of their life and then that's it.
Any other comments? What about this idea of having a family or at least sharing traditions, family traditions with, others, like rooting yourself in family traditions and your own culture? Do you think that's important
Yeah,
for life?
yeah. Like, look at how many parties we had and get-togethers, right?
Hmm.
Growing up,
Yes.
we had a lot. I remember you guys were at our house, I don't know, every other week, maybe twice a month.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was really good. That was excellent. That was nice. And
Yes. Pardon me?
now it's just like, you see your family at Christmas and funerals or weddings.
Yeah. The occasional birthday party or something, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's true. When I think that when we were younger, your grandfather would often take us, to see his mother, right? So we went to see my grandmother, right? And that was a regular thing. Family visits were regular. Now people are so
Yeah.
mobile and they're, getting work in other cities or, other countries even. And
Yeah.
so they lose that connection with their families.
Yeah. I
Yeah, and I
mean,
mean the
oh,
physical connection, right? I mean, yes,
yeah.
you can connect on Zoom or Skype or whatever, but,
Yeah.
there is something to be said for,
I agree.
seeing your family, in person.
Well, I mean, I just remember like all the time growing up, and we would see, our grandparents, we saw everybody,
Yeah,
everybody.
yes,
Now we don't really see anybody.
No,
yeah,
like now my friends are, my family and stuff, like my extended family, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, you've been doing some interesting things, Sarah, for Charlie because, Kelly and your father passed away a few years ago. So
Hmm.
you've been trying to at least help form some sort of intergenerational bonding for him, right?
Hmm.
By, approaching, close friends who are elderly that could at least play the role of grandfather, whoever, right?
Yeah, I have two. Well, my one friend, he's going to be 81 this year,
Yes.
and he plays kind of like the role as grandfather, or maybe even great grandfather to
Yeah.
Charlie. But then there's
A godfather kind of thing for him. Yeah.
but the LeBlanc family that we know.
Hmm.
Well, David, that's Robin's husband, is never going to be a grandfather. His two kids don't want to have children.
Yes.
So as soon as he heard that I was pregnant and Robin passed away, and he said, "Well, I want to be the grandfather for your child." I was like, That's fine,"
Oh, that's great.
because Charlie's got no grandfathers.
Yes.
Well, spiritually and memories, like
That's right.
can talk about, but other than that, like they're not here.
That's right.
See
Yes.
'em, but yeah.
Yeah. So that helps too. And it's interesting that he volunteered to do that, right?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
surprised. I was like, "Oh, yeah." So
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Does Charlie have the opportunity to see him much?
Not really. No, he sees Katie. She's the godmother.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So yeah.
So when again, we'll just go back to the question. When
Mm,
you reflect on all this, what is life all about to you, Sarah?
I guess just living life. Well, bond, like what you said and what you wrote, having a family,
Yes.
that's important.
Yeah, because you pass that on, right?
Yeah.
You've left that part of you here, right?
Yeah.
So,
And I kept praying. Well, I not really pray, but I kept hoping. I'm like, gonna be a mother one day.
yes,
Want to bring a little bundle of joy into this world.
yes, that's good.
And now, yeah, he's sleeping.
Yeah. And that's another thing, because people may focus so much on environmental issues or financial issues and all this that they
Just let
lose
go of
hope.
that stuff.
Yeah, they lose hope for the future. Whereas I think when you make the decision that you want to have children, you have a positive outlook on the future. That's why you're
Mhm.
having children, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and
yeah.
like you said, you just let it go, right? And
Just
It's
hope for the
it's
best.
kind of interesting because I don't. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't bring anybody into this. Oh my goodness. Like, really?
yeah.
I
Well,
mean, I
I'm not an
really am.
aunt.
I'm just like,
Well,
oh,
Kelly and I have had that discussion because, neither
yeah,
one
we
of
have.
us have had children, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes we go, oh, gee, we're glad that we didn't. But more and more
Yeah.
as I reflect on things, I realize, I think it is important. It's important for society. It's important for humanity. I think we should have children. And this whole
Mhm.
idea of overpopulation has been, well, it's been misleading, right? And I was just reading something online of someone who had researched this whole idea of overpopulation. And he was saying the population throughout the planet has been declining since 1987.
That's the year
So,
I was born.
yes. So, and yes, you'll find that in certain parts of the world it's increasing, but in other parts of the world it's dropping, right? So,
Right, right.
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, the only thing is though, Dee, is that, or Diane, is that like, we can bring children into this world, but because this world doesn't really promote healthiness, like I shouldn't say this world, but our society in particular doesn't promote, health in children. You know, you kind of want healthy children. It sounds horrible to some, but it's not horrible. What's horrible is that there's so many very, very ill and very disabled children.
yeah,
That's horrible.
yes.
So, I mean, to say that, yeah, we need to bring more children, I disagree. We need to get our population healthy and then bring healthy children into it.
Yes, but if you had to wait, oh, so Faith has joined us. I think if we waited,
Mhm.
we would never, people wouldn't have children, right? So the whole idea, and like what Sarah's doing is she's raising Charlie to be as healthy as she can, right?
I don't know. I see I see so many
And
who
even
are
if
who
even
are
if you
not.
don't have children, but your siblings have children,
Yes.
you're you're part of their life.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
Faith has joined us. And Sarah, I want you to show yourself because Faith hasn't seen you before. Faith, I want you to meet my other niece, Sarah.
Oh, cool.
And
Hi,
Sarah
Sarah.
is Kelly's
Hello.
sister. And Sarah is the mother of Charlie. So we have
Oh,
been talking about when we've been talking about what is life all about, we have been talking about the whole idea of having children and starting a family. And I did do a write-up too that I shared, at the beginning, talking about that. And also the whole idea of part of life is actually feeding our spirit, right? And that could be done by attending a place of worship with a group, or it could be through prayer or meditation, or reading spiritual things, music, art, all different ways of feeding our spirit. And that's an important part of life. At least that was my view. And I also said family traditions, like, sharing in family traditions and appreciating our cultural background are key too, to life. So do you have any thoughts on, what you think life is all about, Faith?
yeah, that's a good one. I mean, we're talking about creativity here now, right?
Well, different things, right? Because part of that creativity is, some people feel that that's important to them, right? In their life, it's a creative aspect. Now, I was reading what someone said, and they said, to some people, life is about wealth, collecting wealth.
Um,
Just don't know.
the first thing that comes to my mind is what is that famous cliche? It's true though, to love and to be loved. That is what life is really about. And creativity is an offshoot of that, is an expression of that, If you love what you do, if you love it requires a lot of love to hold a baby in a womb,
Yeah.
love from the mother, from the universe, from God. And
Mhm.
if you get creative ideas for artistic ideas, or for products, if you want to produce products or new, if you do like healing arts and you create new techniques and that kind of thing, so it comes from like a labor of love, for want of a better word.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's true, because that labor of love is something that can really enrich our souls, right?
Yeah.
So, oh,
It brings a fullness to oneself, to one's mind, one's heart, one's life, one's soul. Yes.
and Kelly, did you want to share did you want to tell Faith what you were sharing at the start?
So I said that life is learning experience and like learning from adventures and learning from your knowledge.
Any comments, Faith? So that kind of gets into that, right? When you're creative, you're learning things too.
Yeah,
And yeah, life is about learning. And sometimes we learn from our challenges.
exactly.
We
Yeah,
have to
definitely.
work things out, problem solve, and afterwards, once we met that challenge and overcome it, it
And
benefits.
you're like, great.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're victorious.
and it's like okay, so you've learned all you can in one area, or you've reached a sort of plateau, and it's like, okay, where can I take this now to the next level? If you see a need for something, for a product, a related product, or a skill set, then you sort of go in that direction, and it's like an offshoot addition to your main skill set, that you can share with the world,
Yes,
help
that's
help
true.
people even more. Yeah.
Yes. That's so true. When I reflect on my life, I mean, I've done things where I've worked in the educational side of museums. And then when I left museums, I went into being an international teacher, so teaching in the classroom. But it allowed me to work with young people for like 27 years in total, right? And because some of those young people were disabled in some way, I also had I had experience working with people with physical disabilities. So those experience, you could see the overlap in certain things that you do in your life, right? There's certain threads. And so, yeah, you build your character more, the more that you learn things.
Definitely.
Yes, definitely.
And Sarah, did you want to share with Faith what you were saying in regards to Charlie? And Charlie is her son. And did you want to talk a bit about that?
My son Charlie, he's almost a year and a half, and I want him to have a really good life, good future for him.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
just so you know, Sarah has always wanted to have children.
yeah, I've
And
always
so she
wanted
had
to have
Charlie when
kids.
she was 33. So she's finding it very rewarding, and she's learning discipline and of
Yeah.
her own self-discipline, right? Because
How old did you say she was when she had Charlie? 32?
33.
33.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
yep.
but
35
the whole
now.
idea of self-sacrifice, right? When you're a parent, is often what you have to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, because you
It's
have
a
to meet
lot
the
of
needs of
work.
someone else. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of work being a parent.
But it's rewarding too.
Yeah, it is.
So,
It's the toughest
It's-
job, apparently.
And you know what? I used to be an ECE, and depending on the age group, it's just as hard. But I think having your own child, you have that child with you all the time, and it's more work. It's harder.
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
I used to work with infants, so for myself, I'm allowed 3 infants. If I was to be with toddlers, it's 5 toddlers for one teacher. If it was preschoolers, so like 2.5 to 5 years old, 8.
Wow.
8. So it was a lot of work.
Yeah,
But at least with me, it's like, okay, go home.
that's right. I
Go
found
to
that
your
as a
family.
teacher, right? You only have
Yeah.
them for a certain amount of time, and then
Yeah.
You don't see them.
And then they go.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Compared to like me now as a mom, I have him all the time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, but I'm okay. I'm actually good with that. I'm happy with my life,
Yeah.
but not so. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna go because it is getting
I
late
know.
here.
Thank you, Kelly, because I know you're tired and you're out this evening, you and Bob. So I appreciate you joining. And
Oh, it's okay. Yeah. Yeah.
and please
Nice to meet you,
join us in
Kelly.
2 weeks, okay, Kelly? When we
Nice to meet
go
you
to live.
too. What's that?
Nice
Sorry,
to meet
sorry, Dee.
Sorry,
you,
Dee.
sisters.
Or Diane.
But stay with us, Sarah, because
Yeah, I'll
this is
stay
the
for
first one that you joined in. Good night, Kelly.
Good night.
good night, Kelly.
Bye, guys.
Night, Kelly.
Bye, Sarah. Good night, Faith.
Night.
Bye.
So anything else that you'd like to add in regards to what is life all about? If you were to talk to people who are younger than yourself, what would you share with them?
Be strong. Don't give in to temptation.
Ah,
That's a good one.
and
Because
when
the
you
devil-
say temptation, there certain things that come to mind.
Oh yeah, we could be here all night talking about that one. If you have certain principles and values and morals that and goals that you have in life, don't allow anybody or anything to
Yeah,
interrupt you and take you off your path.
yeah. Wait it out. You're saying wait it out.
Yeah, just don't act on impulse. Don't be
Yes.
impulsive. But sometimes I guess being young, that's what youth is for, right? But not everybody does end up acting on impulse.
Yes.
A lot of people do go through youth without making major blunders and
Mhm.
have a really good life, very happy life. So
Yes, that's important. Yeah. Having some discipline in life is important too.
mhm. Oh, extremely important.
Yes.
On my own
And
experience.
yes. I came across something, it might have been even in the Bible, but the whole idea that patience is power, right? And I think there's a lot to be said for that. So when I was a teenager, I hung around the cool people, but I wasn't a cool person. I wasn't the in person, right? I would say I was more of an observer than someone who, really participated in the drug scene or.
Were you the type of student where you jumped to different groups in high school? Like you socialized with different groups?
Not necessarily. I was liked by, my classmates and that, but I basically hung around the same people, right? But because we lived out in the country and far away from, our peers, right? And we were kind of limited in, our selection of friends. You know, you- I often did hang around people that perhaps would not be the best role models, right? The best people to hang around with. May I say though that those experiences have helped me understand the drug and alcohol scene more when I got older, because right now, as you know, I'm helping somebody that has that type of history, right? And so I think there was a reason why I had those type of people in my life, and that is perhaps to prepare me for, dealing with that later in life. But, in regards to, others. But also I think, when you are around people like that, you learn,
I
right?
was just gonna say
What to
you
do and what
learn.
not to do, right? So
Yeah.
any other comments? Anything
Yeah,
else?
I hung out with the cool gang too. When I was like more like when I got into my later teens, early 20s, and high society.
Yes.
Lots of I didn't get too heavily into the drugs, but I did experiment, and
Mhm.
a little bit, and just curiosity, and it wasn't really my thing. I didn't find it very pleasant at all. So I guess I was already kind of, I feel like I had been practicing spirituality in previous lifetimes, and I just brought it with me to this lifetime. So
Yeah,
it wasn't something that I got too addicted to. And and then I went from there into more spiritual life in my early 20s.
yes.
I did the fast track on through that and out of it really early in life.
Yes, I think I did too, right? Now, Sarah, because, Sarah's in their 30s, her experience would be different, right? Because I mean, you've had friends from very alternative, who live very alternative lifestyles, right, Sarah?
Mhm.
Whereas with us, at least in my age group, it was just starting then, but it hadn't developed to the level it has nowadays, right?
I pretty much hung out with almost everyone at school. One week I'd be with one group, I'd be like, and I'd run into the one person that's not with this group. Okay, I'll see you another time. Hang out with that group. That was me in high school.
Oh, very flexible. Right.
Yeah, I jumped, but I know when I was with my ex Mike, we were normally just us for like 2 years or a year and a half, something like that. And then after
Yes.
that, things didn't work out. I went back to doing hopping around to each group.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I got along with a lot of people.
Yes, you still
And
do. Like that,
yeah,
I mean, you have a lot of friends and a
hmm
lot of connections, and that's
I know where I get it from.
so, yeah. Anyway. But yeah, I mean, it really helps you. It helps you in your role as a mother too, right? Because you've built up quite a network of mothers.
And I need to teach him like the proper social skills when he gets older, because a lot or nowadays kids are like really out of hand. Like a lot of them are bullies and stuff like that. Well, bullies back then too, but
Yeah,
like
yeah, there's always
it's worse now.
yeah. Well, now because you have social media, I mean,
Yeah.
bullying has gone in different direction, right?
Hmm.
Oh, yeah, I guess, that's the thing about technology too, right? It's really changed society. So
Hmm.
it has its strengths, and of course, there's other problems with it too.
Yep.
And we have maybe about 20 minutes or so. So I just, want to ask, is there anything else you'd like to talk about or anything in regards to the thing? What is life all about? And I guess what I'd ask you, have you ever sat and thought about that question? What's this all about?
Well, learning, growing. I believe that we take whatever we learn in each lifetime with us to the next lifetime.
But that's because, I mean, Faith, you've done Buddhism, right? Like you've
Yeah.
studied Buddhism. So is that where you get it from? Like, when I look at my life, I think I always kind of wondered, first of all, like, what is life all about? And it seems pretty crazy what I see, right? Did you think that before?
Yeah, I really didn't study Buddhism. It's more the Dhamma, which is
Oh,
direct teaching. It's a way of life. It's the embodiment.
okay.
It's not a religion per se. It's like it's a part of me. It's in me. It's a practice, right? It's a way of thinking, a way of being in the world and with oneself. A lot of my experiences led me to that path. So it wasn't like a belief system that was sort of imposed on me or sort of indoctrinated or anything like that. It was more of an understanding and an explanation of why I was experiencing what I was experiencing. Yeah, so I believe that our skills, our intelligence, our talents, our gifts, we're just continuing on from our previous lifetimes, and I feel that it's never too late to learn new things. And I feel like at this point in my life, there's a bit of an urgency to like hurry up and learn more things. I have a long list of other things I want to master in this life. because I know that it's going to come with me next time around. And if there is a next time around, this might be the last one for all I know. So yeah, I had a past life memory. Like I was studying, I work in private healthcare as a licensed practitioner. And while I was studying anatomy one night, it was pretty intense studies of the sciences, the physiology, and all that. I had a memory of being in a past life as a man studying by candlelight. It was unmistakable. It was
Mhm.
unmistakable. It was
Mhm.
very clear that I'd done this before,
Mhm.
and I was studying to be a doctor. I'm like, where did that come from? It wasn't my imagination. I mean, it wasn't really like a fantasy that I had, or, oh yeah, in this past life or whatever. I mean, I'm always skeptical anyway. I mean, but Buddha did teach, and my teacher, S.N. Goenka, did teach that past lives are real. And he had recounted several of his own experiences with people in his life that he'd known in past lives. There are many accounts of people that have had memories of past lives, and they became confirmed, and with names of people and villages and towns and everything. So, do you want to hear another past life story?
Sure. Because then we can change the question to what is our lives all about? Right?
Yeah. Well,
Or what
well,
are our
it's kind of
lives?
like a preface, like what we've experienced in the past affects our current life. So I remember one time coming across this name of somebody who's like a life coach, like a spiritual teacher. I think I came across on Facebook, and we talked, and he seemed like a really nice guy, like, pretty safe and caring. And I went to go meet him at a cafe somewhere in this little town, like somewhere in this little cafe, like in this town, like Langley or somewhere. Anyway, so it was very quiet. There was nobody, hardly anybody there. And I sat down, and almost right away, I had this intense fear come up, and I felt this like string or rope around my neck. And the fear was so intense. I mean, I felt like somebody was strangling me, and it was like a past life memory of somebody. That's how I died. Somebody actually put a rope around, and he could see it. He looked at me. He knew what was happening. I didn't even say anything. I put my hand. He said, "That's a past life memory." He
Yes.
told me, yeah. I'm like, what? Is this for real? Like, holy crap. I can't believe this. Like, how could that be coming up so strong right now? It feels like it's happening now. Like, it was so intense.
Mm-hmm.
The fear was so intense. Like, so
Yes.
I don't know. So anyway, that's another incident that
I did meet a woman. This is when I was in Kuwait, and the woman was sharing a similar type of story, right? But in this situation, she said, I walked into a restaurant. I'm seated at a booth. And she said, and there was a man across at another booth, and he kept staring at me he was really, really angry, right?
uh-huh.
And she says, I felt really afraid and all this. And I thought, what is it? It's as if they both knew each other, but not in this life. And finally, she just went up to him and she said, like, what is it with you? Why do you hate me? Why? And he says, I don't know why. There's something about you that brings up this really negative emotion in me. And they're both from India. So they both felt that had to do with something in their past lives.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they actually are more aware of their past lives because it's kind of accepted in their religion and their culture that it's a belief system. And so a lot of them actually do remember their past lives. I read a book about people recounting why they are the way they are in this life because they remember specific, and then describing their previous lifetimes, or the life before, the bad things that they did, right? And so this was their karma. And there's a story of a young boy who, when he was like all of his childhood, he was having bad dreams, nightmares of being strangled, and then and he remembered finally being a woman in his previous life, and he was murdered by her husband at that time.
Mhm.
He remembered the name of the man, and it was like it was 10 years later, right? The town and everything, and they went, and they he knew where the body was buried and everything. And they went,
Wow.
they found the body, they dug it up. And of course the man then, he had to admit to his crime. He
Mm.
spent time in prison for that. He had to go to prison. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So many stories like that. Yeah.
But I wonder, Faith, with these past lives, like, do you think this world is a school? Do you think it's
Oh, I don't
like that?
think I know it is. Yeah. I feel that it is.
Then
Uh,
why are our memories erased? Most of our memories of past lives are erased before we come in here.
Well, I think it would just be too much for us to handle because we're in a 5 sense world, right? And it would just be too overwhelming. And we have to focus on the here and now, on survival and day to day, mundane things, activities of daily living. I think it's very deep in our deeper levels of the mind, and it's in our essence, it's in our energy field. It's something that we've perhaps already purified, and we don't need to relearn that or relive that. So I think we go through a purification each time we come back. Unless we fall down, sometimes we can make mistakes, and fall down, and then we just get back up again. you know. But
But could
yeah.
somebody come in here being pure and then they're tainted from just living in this world,
Well, I don't think
Pick up
anybody
a
comes
lot of-
in pure unless, if we were pure, then we wouldn't return, right? So we would just not return anywhere in any life, any.
I think of some really good souls that started out, maybe they're not pure, but they seem to be good souls, and then the wrong choice and they go down the wrong path.
Yeah, that is something that. Hmm.
And I do wonder when I think of like the criminal elite, the
Oh yeah,
banksters and everyone else.
yeah.
And some people have hinted at this, that they remember when they come back, but we
heard of that.
forget. So,
A lot of it's mystery too. It's just like I know I'm not gonna sweat it. I'm just gonna continuing on the upward spiral.
yeah, yeah.
I just find that it's fascinating. It just entertains my curiosity, my mind, and it's important to focus on purifying it here and now. And I think that when we work on purifying the spirit and the mind in the here and now, we are also taking all that past stuff with us. That's also getting purified out. Because when I first started doing the meditation practice that I do, I was kind of concerned. It's like, oh my God, okay, so I got to work through my childhood stuff. Okay, so I'm doing that with this technique and with other means. And then I was thinking, well, what about all the past life stuff, right? It's like, with the Vipassana meditation, right? And then somebody said, well, actually, when you practice this meditation, it's a purification of everything because it's all in the cells, it's in your DNA, in the information field within your own being. It's coming with it. It's all coming at the same time. When you're purifying in the here and now, that's also getting purified out. It's like, oh, now I understand. It's a big relief.
And I know I actually talked to somebody, find out what my past life is because I never experienced any of this before. And it makes sense with the one lady told me, she said, you were a nurse and you took care of people. And I thought, oh, I took care of kids. So I think in a way that makes sense. And then I end up in the field. So I thought that's pretty wild when I heard about that. Plus, I was a man too.
And in your last life?
Yeah. and I died in one of the wars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just those two.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty interesting about the nurse one.
Yeah,
So
well, you've always, and I would think, like you said, had been dealing with children, right?
yeah,
Because you seem to be a natural with kids, even as an ECE teacher, right? Or a staff person. You're really
yeah, I did pretty good in the long-term retirement care,
Yes,
even though I
that's
was in
right.
the
I forgot
kitchen.
you did that. Yeah.
But I ended up being in the retirement side and socializing with the seniors and
Mhm.
serving them their meals. And
Yeah,
of course, if they needed help, I'd help them. So in a way, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
that's right. It does. Yes.
Yeah. But the
And you
war
really
one, I don't
enjoy that. I
know.
mean, you do like working with people and helping people, right? You've always like,
Most of the time.
yeah. Well, we all, no matter what your career or your job, we have to deal with prickly personalities occasionally.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's good.
I always find it interesting too, the whole past life stuff. Like, I don't know how people remember that. I don't have any memories until I met that person. And like, I think she was a psychic lady and she told me, and when she said about the nurse thing, that's when I thought that makes sense. But yeah, I don't understand how people can remember
They
that
say
stuff.
often children, young children, will recall their past life. So there is a psychologist that would actually interview kids. And I think
Hmm.
sometimes he'd hypnotize them, but sometimes just interviewing them. And he would get a lot of information about what they remembered in their previous life. And your Uncle Dave, he remembers when he was 4 years old and he was walking down the street with his sister and his older sister, and said to her, "Do you remember when Sam was our brother?" And Sam's their cousin now, right? And we used to live out in the desert and we lived in tents and all this. Like he remembered certain things, right?
Wow.
So, yeah.
You talking about Dave?
Think
Yes.
Wow.
that's wild.
It is.
Yeah, he
Mu-
remembered the roles that people played in the previous life, and the roles had changed in this life.
Hmm.
Like
Another
that.
thing, I always want to know like where you go, like for sure after we're gone. I know people always say different things, but
That's right. And so that's
yeah,
why it's hard to know for sure.
yeah.
Because people say different things.
But
Yeah.
I always have visions like with my dad.
Mm,
Oh, and I went to that church that I brought Dave at,
yeah.
and there was a meditation event going on. Dave wasn't there for that one. I went and I just focused, white light going through me, breathing, and I was saying to myself, I want to know where my dad is. And all I could picture was an open field and a big tree. And you know how he loved sunlight.
Yes,
There's
that's right.
nothing but sunlight. And I'm thinking,
Oh,
so does afterlife, does it look like something like that? Or does everybody have their own afterlife experience? I don't know.
well, that's what Robert Monroe would write about in his books, right? When he
Mhm.
traveled out of his body, he'd meet a friend of his that had passed on, and the guy had, manifested this log cabin and, a fishing boat and this, right? So he created what type of world he wanted, right?
Mhm.
So,
Well, it almost looks like it kind of looked like the cemetery that he's at.
oh,
Yeah.
hmm.
But, well, and yeah, like I said, he loved a nice sunny day. So,
Yes, he very much loved sunshine.
yeah. Yeah. So makes me wonder what's going to happen with me. or anybody
Well, I
really.
mean, a lot of people say we do, in fact, your father asked, had hoped that he would meet his sister and his brother when he passed over. And some people who have had near death experiences have said that they would see relatives and that sort of thing, but they would
Mhm.
encourage them to come back here, right? So,
Yeah. I've read online about like how people pass away. Like as soon as they're dead, they say that the last, I think it's the brain that's the last part that dies, like officially.
mhm.
Takes like 10 minutes. So, and I've also read that they can still hear people, but they don't have I
Yeah,
guess, the
they can't
cognitive
communicate. Yeah,
skills. Yeah.
yes, that's right. Well,
Life
uh,
is interesting.
life is interesting. Well, that's true, right? Because that's another thing about life is sometimes we are curious about what happens when we leave here. So
I'm always
there
curious about it.
and yes, and Christians are thinking that they will see Christ and they will go to heaven, and this sort of thing. And Buddhists, have their belief system, and other practices do, and religions have them too. So,
Mhm.
you know, I guess it's whatever you wish to believe.
Yeah, that's what I think.
hmm So,
It makes me wonder for the people who don't believe.
yes,
Chris, for instance, he's an atheist.
yes,
And I even sat down and talked because he knows about religion because
yes.
of how he was brought up. Go to church 4 days a week with his mother.
Wow.
Yeah. So he knows all about it. But yeah, he switched to being an atheist. And I sat down and talked to him. I'm like, what do you think is gonna happen once you pass away? I'm like, clearly you don't think that there's like God and Jesus and the gates to heaven. He's like, no. He's like, once you're dead, that's it.
Yes.
No more. And I thought, I don't know if I believe that. Yeah. Well, we all have our beliefs.
hmm Yeah. And they change, right?
They
As we
do.
experience more life and the trials of life, sometimes that has a shift our views about religion and our
Hmm.
different belief systems. So,
Yeah. I guess
well,
I'm more
thank you,
spiritual.
Faith.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. What were you going to say, Sarah?
no, I was gonna say I think I hear somebody.
Okay.
So if you're
Anyway,
ending this, perfect timing.
yes. Well, Sarah, I want to thank you for joining us. And Faith, did you have any final words before we go?
Nope, but just listening.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you to the two of you, and
Mhm,
also Kelly, who left us a little while ago. And I
mhm,
also just want to remind viewers that we will be doing our final Expanding Your Consciousness meetup group on March 28th. And it'll probably be an open forum unless I come up with a theme. It might be just reviewing some of the topics that we did. We'll see how it goes. And so I encourage people to join that meetup, and it'll be at 7 p.m. Vancouver time. And it's the reason I'm moving away from having the meetup groups is simply because I have other projects I'm getting involved with. And so what I will do though is keep the channel on YouTube. And if there's videos of interest that, come up, I'll post them on that channel. And I may occasionally do some videos myself and post them. So again, I want to thank Sarah and Faith and Kelly for joining tonight and discussing what is life all about. All right.
Thank
Good night.
you.
yes, thank
Night
you.
night.
See,
Yeah.
good
Bye bye,
night.
Sarah. Good night.